where do we find the word dogma in the Bible? All right, let's start with the book of Acts. That's the only place where the word is used in the chapter 15 of the book of Acts, used in the sense that it's used here, and that is the word dokeo, and it means to seem. If you remember, the early church had a heresy called Docetism, which basically meant that Jesus only seemed to be human. All right. That word shows up in chapter 15 when the Council of Jerusalem is taking place. And then there's a letter which is sent out under James's name, the head of the Jerusalem church, brother of Jesus. And he says, it seemed good to us and to the Holy Spirit that we, and then he gives the decision that they make regarding how to include the Gentile converts into what it was a Jewish sect, a Jewish community that believed in the messiahship of Jesus. And then he gives the terms, and those are the terms that, you avoid certain sexual sin, you avoid non-kosher foods, things that were very important to being part of the Jewish context, because the question in chapter 15 of Acts is not how do Jews become Christians? It's actually the reverse. How do these Gentiles become Jews? Through identifying with our Messiah, Jesus. That was the question. Should it be through circumcision or not? And other in the keeping of the entire law, which that's the open question. James's response is, it seemed good to us because this maintains unity. Secondly, he says, we don't put any burden on you. We're not going to put on any other burden than what follows. So what is he doing? He's removing burdens that would weigh down these new believers. Okay, so he's very clear to say we're removing burdens off of you. But you have to keep certain necessary things, and that was the third stipulation of what seemed good by the Holy Spirit. Now that is dokeo. That's where we get the word dogma. That is, in essence, the first dogma that we find in Christian history. If you want to kind of pinpoint where do we actually see the first time that in seed form appears, there it is. The one who defined dogma in modern times best was Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who said that dogmas should be indicators, meaning in a sense they're like mileposts. You're on a road, you're heading someplace. Where do you want to get to? Well, here's something that's pointing you. Baltimore is in 45 miles. A little further down, Baltimore is 30 miles. It's a signpost that's leading you in the direction you want to go. In theological language, a dogma is the best that words can do. And you notice that in those creeds, those early creeds, they're very general. They hold the church in unity. We can all affirm this. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, and Jesus Christ, His only Son, and in the Holy Spirit. These are very simple statements of faith that don't overstate anything. They hold everything together in unity, and I think more of the Apostles' Creed here than even the Nicene. The Nicene, you're getting a little more doctrinaire. But in this very early baptismal creed, one of the many early baptismal creeds, what we call the Apostles' Creed, you have a very simple statement that, as long as you affirm the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, we're not going to put any more burden on you than that. And again, it's this thing not to overload with burdens. What dogmas were meant to do originally was to keep it simple, was to make it, how much can we gather in to the church I remember once, speaking of dogma, I was with a number of Roman Catholic priests once, and it came up, what do we make of this? And they were talking actually about marriage, canon law, and marriage, and who can be separated legally and remarried. That was the big question on the table. And one of the priests, very gentle African priest, actually said, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And another priest off to my right suddenly burst out somewhat angrily, very aggressively. He said, I'll tell you what Jesus would do. He'd obey the church. And I just fell off my chair laughing. Okay, well, there's dogmatism. So when I say yes to dogma as indicators along the way, allowing freedom of being able to think through these very different things, coming to relate to them intellectually, good, that's dogma, fine, as long as it's pointing somewhere and isn't the thing that you idolize. Bad when it becomes dogmatism, which is simply, we're an authority, you have to believe it, don't question this because we said so. And that would be, even if it's not phrased that way, that's dogmatism. And it has created a lot of hurt in the church, and maybe irreparably.